Welcome back to this week's episode of I'm Set, the podcast. I'm Danisha Roll.
I'm Adriana Smith.
And I'm Sports Talk Tasha.
And we have a guest joining us, Dr. Jeff Rocker. Dr. Jeff is a therapist. He is a marriage and family therapist. He went to HBCU, Bethune-Cookman. He's a Wildcat. Got his master's and doctorate from Nova Southeastern University. And he is a therapist for NFL players, NBA players, and Major League Baseball players, as well as entertainers in the music and movie industries. We are delighted to have you joining us, Dr. Jeff.
Thanks for having me here.
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So this week in sports, we have seen quite a few things happen, and we wanted to just get your take on Ja Morant and his situation. How do you feel about athletes that find themselves in the spotlight and then have to see a therapist?
Actually, let me just put it out. There's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist. So that's number one and foremost. But I think that for Ja, he has to learn that he has to grow and mature and let the past be the past. I think sometimes, a lot of times, the athletes tend to, carry the past with them in their current situation. So Ja, I guess he grew up in a neighborhood where these friends that he's currently with, they were there supporting him, looking out for him as he went on to be, of course, an NBA player. But sometimes as you grow, you have to let people go.
Now, but what if it's so hard for them to do that because they have this form of loyalty? Like, man, you my boy, we grew up together. Like, when I make it to the league, you coming with me. What about that, though? Like, can you give us some practical ways on how they can let those friendships go?
Yes. One of the things that I always talk about is that you have to set boundaries. And what does that look like? Sometimes you're just people where you could tell them, hey, you could come with me here, but you can't come with me here, or there's people where you just cut them off completely. And sometimes you have to give them the hard truth, like, listen, you were with me back then, but obviously I'm in a path where I need to separate because we're not aligning with our same goals. And that's okay. I think that not just celebrities, but we all have to go through that.
Absolutely.
There's people where you were best friends as you was in middle school, high school, where now you don't even talk about at all.
At all.
It happens all the time.
It's true, you outgrow people.
You got to.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about you. How did you get your start? What made you want to be Dr. Jeff Rocker?
Oh, man, that's a long story, but I'm going to try to cut it short. So, of course, I grew up in the great city of North Miami Beach.
Yep.
All day NMB in the building. But sometimes where it's great, there's also some hardships around the area, too. Drug abuse, domestic violence, gang violence. So for me, my safety net was basketball. So I used to play ball back in the day. And I was pretty good at it, too. So where I played ball in high school, I played for North Miami Beach Senior High School, which is the Chargers all day for life.
Chargers all day.
Yeah. So I was pretty good. So, but while I was playing, I get caught up with some friends back in the day, kind of like the Ja Morant situation. Why, like most kids, you grew up with people. It's like, you know what, that's my boy for life. So same situation had me in high school. And when they returned back into my life, I tend to start skipping classes, not turning in my assignments, and of course, one day I get a call from my coach. He pulled me in the office and said, sorry, Jeff, I had to let you know, but I had to cut you off from the basketball team.
Wow.
Now, like most inner city black kids, basketball, or at least sports in general, is our life.
It's your way out.
It's my way out. And that's all I could see my way out was going to the NBA. So when he cut me, I went through a state of depression. So that's where I lost a lot of weight. I lost about 20 to 25 pounds. And also I wasn't eating, of course. I wasn't sleeping. And of course, I'm Haitian. So telling my Haitian parents that I was going through depression, like, what the hell is this? And I don't blame them because, of course, in the Haitian community, you don't talk about mental health. You don't know what that looks like. So telling my mom and my dad that I'm going through depression, like, I don't know how to help you. So luckily, as the months went by, my guidance counselor was able to help me and guide me. And he put me on the right path, and I was able to get back on the basketball team. But it quickly learned that, you know what, there's a lot of people going through what I'm going through. People in NMB, outside NMB, just across the nation, where people don't know who they could talk to. Because people I grew up with, the person they thought could talk to is someone like Dr. Phil. And I know the people that I go to school with would never go to Dr. Phil like therapist. Not to say Dr. Phil's not good at what he does, but it's just people have their preference.
Right.
So this is why it motivated me to be someone who's relatable, someone you can connect with, someone that you can see yourself in their own same shoes. And that's why I decided to go with therapy after I realized I'm not going to the NBA.
Right.
So did you end up playing sports at the collegiate level, or it was just...
I didn't, but in high school I was in a band and I played basketball.
Okay.
You was in a band?
I was.
What you played?
I played the quad.
The what?
The drums.
Oh, okay.
Quads, 4 drums.
Okay.
Quad.
I was about to say he wasn't a drum major. I could see him as a drum major, though.
I wanted to be a drum major. I wanted to do the dancing. ain't work out that way, but it's all right.
Okay. All right. So, from therapy, tell us how you would suggest or recommend that somebody reach out if they wanted to have you as their therapist.
They could just Google my name.
Okay.
That really does help. you know?
Right.
Google me,
Google's
baby.
pretty good.
It does. But also, Psychology Today is a good website. Find all therapists, not just me, but anybody in your preference. But just to know that there's a lot of people nowadays where before it was limited to see black professionals in this
Right.
field. But now it's a growing field, but it's still, there's a lot of work to be done, particularly black male therapists. I would say that for the longest, for the last, I say 30 years, I've been like a unicorn. Because you hardly, by the way, this field is dominated by women. So to have a black male therapist in front of you, black male doctor, say,
Doctor.
I
Yes,
gotta
Dr.
correct
Jeff.
that. Yes, it's something that you don't see hardly. So this is why I just want to pave the way for people coming after me, so they can go in the field and, of course, make a difference.
So tell us some of the things or situations that people might find themselves in where they seek out therapy. Sometimes there's instances where we don't know how to cope or deal. We find ourselves stressed out, but we don't realize, you know what, a therapist might help.
I think one of the things is want to work. So now people think that it's called functional depression, right? So people go to work every day, 9 to 5, but they hate their job. And because of that, it tends to, where they don't sleep, they tend to lose weight, they tend to kind of like hate life. But they still go through life, they still pay the bills, but they don't really enjoy life. So I would say there's many people that's existing in life, but internally they're dying. They're killing themselves. So those are the people that you see to be honest, that's more common than not. Where people, they do what they got to do to live, but they're living just to get by. And for me, that's no way to live your life.
So
Go ahead.
We had guests come on and we talked about athletes that are playing the sport, and many of them find themselves, like you said, it's their way out. Not just for them, for their families, but they find that they actually hate playing the sport. Yeah. Have you ever spoken with any athletes that you find that they are just really existing, they're just there, they're gifted, but this isn't really their passion?
All the time. Because look at it this way. There's a lot of people relying on them.
Right.
They're that gold ticket to bring everybody out the hood. So because of that, they carry that with them, and that's usually a driving force for why they enter the sport and, of course, stay for many years. But a lot of times they don't like it, especially with football, with the head injuries, the concussions, the CT. It's serious. There's a lot of football players who are committing suicide, and people are at what's going on because they're getting hit in the head.
You find that a lot more in the black and brown community than any other community, is where the breadwinner becomes the provider for the entire family. And, instead of taking care of themselves first, they're trying to say, okay, well, my mom needs this, my dad needs this, my little sister, little brother, cousin, whatever, auntie, aunt, whoever, everybody needs something. And they're shouldering that so much burden on them. So how do you, what would you give advice to someone as to say, how do you say, okay, I need to take care of myself first?
If they love you as they're supposed to, they'll allow you to take yourself and put yourself as a priority first before anything else. I think that there's 4 different areas I like to say people should always prioritize: self, career, family, and relationships. And the problem is, particularly with athletes, career takes all their time.
Right.
They neglect self, neglect family, and of course, they neglect relationships. This is why all these obstacles come their way.
That's good.
So what happens in a case like, okay, we see athletes, they get into these relationships, they marry women, and there's 2 very prominent cases right now, one with Scottie Pippen's ex-wife, one with Andrew Wiggins. I don't know, I'm assuming that's still his wife. How would you recommend for not just like the husband, but the kids? Because, Larsa Pippen, she has kids who are older who see and understand everything that's happening. So how do you give advice to those husbands and children on what to do and handle situations like that and move forward?
Just to remind them that every decision has consequences. So Larissa Pippen, she's living her best life, which is she's entitled to do so, but understand that her kids are watching. You are showing your kids what it means to be in a healthy relationship, or at least that's the perception, right? So hopefully she's making decisions to show that so they can learn. Of course, their kids gonna make their own decisions, but you are their role model. They learn how to be in a successful relationship first through you, and then it expands through social media and family and everything else. So you have to make sure that you're a good role model for your kids and everything else.
So we recently saw Larsa come out and say that she has sex 4 times a night, every night for 23 years. Do you believe that?
I think that at some point she probably had sex multiple times in a night, but I doubt that it was 4 times a day or 4 times a night, because of course with the traveling, of course Scottie Pippen's dedication to the sport and the career, so I don't think that's a very accurate number. But I think that for the most part, I think she probably enjoy having sex a lot, so I think that's a good life to live.
Listen,
overall.
Larsa definitely enjoys having sex a lot,
Yeah, nothing wrong with
because
that.
she is out there, like you said, living her best life. But my opinion of Larsa is that, and this is just my opinion, you guys don't have to agree, is that Larsa is a media whore, and she will say whatever she wants to say in order to stay relevant in the media. But in essence, she's really making herself look really stupid. But she has this mentality that no publicity is bad publicity. And it sucks for her kids, because there is such thing as bad publicity, because, you know, what do your kids think of you after that? And I mean, as a child, I don't even understand how her kids cope with her.
Now, I'm assuming that Larsa, she has her reasons for doing it, and we just don't know. It could be financial reasons for all we know. For all we know, that Scottie Pippen is probably cutting her off financially, so she has to make herself relevant to get money so she could support herself and her kids. So that's why I tend to not touch on those subjects, because you don't know what people are going through in their household.
But do you think this is why it's so important they go get help and seek a therapist, right? To really help them deal with the root of their issues, so that way we don't see them in the media doing things like this, that their children can grow up and eventually regret, like, wow, these are my parents.
These are my parents.
Well, I would say it's not a problem until it's a problem. So as long as I'm assuming that she has these conversations on a day-to-day basis with her kids, as long as they're not voicing any issues with it, then I have no problem with it. I think no one else should have a problem with it as well, as long as there's no problem in the household. Now, if there are problems, then yes, I would definitely advise her to go seek professional help for her and her family.
And here we are talking about it, right? So for some people, that is the goal. Like them, love them, or not, you know, it's to be talked about and to be trending, because we live in a day and age where it's all about the likes and the visibility, unfortunately. But we recently saw that you had a conversation with Ed Reed.
Yes, Ed Reed, you know, one thing I realized is that his concerns are very valid. At HBCUs, we have our issues across the board. It's not a Bethune issue, it's all
Right.
HBCUs, where there's
Right.
financial issues, there's issues with the cleanliness of the dorm rooms. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I will say this, if you can make it at HBCU, you can make it anywhere in life.
So what was your experience like at an HBCU?
Listen, I love it. I'm a proud alumni of the great Bethune-Cookman University. I would go there again. I would send my child there again. I mean, listen, I love it, and trust me, it teaches you a lot. Things that you won't learn until you get into the real world.
Love it. I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah,
I
right,
told
huh?
you guys, I wanted my kids to go to an HBCU, and I did this because my kids, their fathers are Black American, and I'm Caribbean, and they understood their Caribbean experience to the fullest. But it didn't dawn on me until we were watching Hidden Figures, and my daughters asked me if they drank from, if they were back in that time, if they would have to drink from the other water fountain too, and I said, you absolutely would. So I was like, y'all need to go to an HBCU. You need to understand the Black American experience, because I clearly failed.
it's interesting. Interesting. Okay. So this week in sports, not only have we gotten to see Ja Morant, but we touched on Tiger Woods. And we know that Tiger Woods had some issues with sex addiction. And as a therapist, you have your different lane, if you will, or maybe a modality that you tend to stay within. Can you tell us some of the therapies that you prefer to work with your clients?
It really varies, but definitely CBT or sometimes role playing, particularly for my athletes. You know,
Well, for our viewers that don't know what CBT is, can you elaborate?
cognitive behavioral therapy, where of course you change someone's thinking so they can change the behavior, so overall change the whole experience and everything else. So, and also like the role playing, particularly for my athletes, I tend to play the sport that they love, whether it be golfing. You know, football players will throw a pass while talking about their personal issues. Actors will actually do the role playing and play certain roles who they want to be rather than who they currently are. So I meet my clients' needs wherever they need me to.
So you're actually like on the field or the court or
On the field,
whatever.
wherever they need me to be.
Oh, okay. That's
Have you
interesting.
ever had a case where you felt like, man, I can't help you?
There's nothing I can do.
There's nothing I can do. Like
This is beyond my scope.
Like this is beyond my degree, my educational background.
My
Like
bandwidth.
this is a tough one.
I'm sure one day I will encounter that. I haven't encountered that as yet.
Okay.
I think anyone could change for the better, but it will take time. So some people may take a few months, some people may take a few years, but everybody's different in their own lane.
So I have to go back to this because Adriana has a very strong opinion on this.
Okay.
Ja Morant checked himself into therapy, and he received an 8-game suspension, whatever.
Okay.
So Adriana, I'll allow you to tell him how you felt about that.
No, you can go ahead and continue. I want to hear it because I'm promise
So-
you he's gonna agree.
Basically, Adriana felt like he's only checking himself into therapy because that checks the boxes of what the NBA needs him to do in order, of course, sort of like what they did to Kyrie Irving. Like, here's a list of things we need you to do to get back right so that everybody will say like, okay, he's doing something and therapy is one of them. So check the therapy box and we'll suspend you for 8 games and whatever. So Adriana feels like it's, for lack of a better word, BS. How would you say, like, how could Ja actually take therapy seriously? Because a lot of athletes do go into therapy unwillingly and then end up getting something valuable from it.
Is he still in therapy right now though?
I have no clue. I just know he's not with the team and he's suspended until the playoffs start because that's when the sponsors need him.
Well, he's not in therapy in Florida because he went to Florida to receive therapeutic services. So I'm assuming he has a new therapist in Memphis. But I think that sometimes you just need to start the conversation. And that goes a very long way. And for him, although he may not take it seriously now, we don't know if he does or he doesn't. But for him to start the service and for him to further along and learn new techniques from his therapist, if he has a great therapist,
Right.
it will definitely make a difference. But like I said, therapy is a journey. It's a process. So if you're expecting him to make a major shift within a week, that's not realistic.
8 games.
Right. And so my stance on it is that I don't want the league, whether it's NBA or NFL, to only push these players into therapy or getting counseling just to benefit them. Like, okay, we just need you to go into therapy, into counseling, so that way we could clear up your name, clear up the image, so that way the public can feel as though that you're getting the help that you need. But in actuality, they're not really caring about that athlete getting the actual help they need in order to grow as a person. Forget an athlete, but to grow as a person, a leader, a father if they have children. You get what I'm saying? So that's my stance with that. Like,
I think a smart GM would, because just getting Ja Morant back after 8 games is not the end all be all. Because you could get back on the court today and have trouble next year,
Right.
or the year after. So you're trying to make sure that your star player doesn't have trouble moving forward. So a smart GM would, push for him to seek therapy services ongoing. I think the changes they already made is that now after road games, he has to go straight. The whole teammates have to go back home on a private jet because usually he'll go to strip clubs and everything else. That they're not allowing that no more.
Right. They're like, we got to go straight back on the plane
Yeah.
and go home. And so here's my things. There's a couple things that make it hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that the NBA might care. So we saw with the San Antonio Spurs, they had an incident with Josh Primo. They cut him from the team and they fired the therapist. So what really came out of that?
Unfortunately, I'm not too familiar with the situation, other than, of course, they fired the therapist and he has issues. But I will hope that even now, John Primo, because he was pretty young, I think
Yeah.
he's in his early 20s.
Yep.
He's seeking ongoing services for his issues.
is.
So he can get back on the court, because I don't think he's signed by any team right now.
No, he is not. So basically, let me help you out with what exactly happened. He was apparently exposing himself to the therapist, and she reported it to the GM. That's what she said. Nothing happened. Months later, I guess it hit the fan, and Josh Primo was cut from the team, and the therapist had been fired, and they ended up settling with the therapist out of court, out of the team, whatever, giving her some money, I guess, to shut up. But at the end of the day, when stuff like that happens with one team, and then you go to the Memphis Grizzlies, and you're thinking, do they really care enough? Like, this is just, and San Antonio is like the team that you would think would care because they
Right.
have Coach Pop and they have such a good persona as a team, as an organization. But then here it is, one of the most respected organizations is like, bye.
Or it could be a sexist issue. Because the psychologist, she was a female, and she voiced her concerns, I believe, multiple times.
Yes.
And they didn't do anything.
Correct.
So them not valuing her opinion about a very serious situation, I think that's the bigger problem, more so than anything else.
Right.
So I don't think they don't care, just that they have to value the assumption of a professional, or at least the recommendation of a professional, particularly in this case. All they saw was I have a star player, or at least a very young player. I think it was a first round draft pick.
He was, surprisingly.
Right.
That
so
was weird.
they're like, you know what? I'm gonna side with him and just suppress what the recommendation was from the psychologist, which is the professional. You can't do that. When we make these recommendations, whether it be treatment or residential programs or ongoing services, you gotta take it seriously, or it can lead to these type of situations or worse.
Interesting. Well, I disagree with these ladies. I believe that Ja Morant and many athletes go through things, and sometimes it isn't until you hit rock bottom, or it isn't until you realize that I can't go any further and the repercussions might be super serious, that you're like, I need to get help. So I think and I believe that Ja Morant just really got to the point where he could go no further. He was looking at a 50-game suspension, and he's like, okay, let me go to therapy.
You know, it's not a. It's by case by case, because if you
Case
got
by
LeBron
case.
James, you got Rich Paul, the Maverick, you know, friends that he grew up with, and look where they at now.
Right.
So you can't really say all friends you have to leave behind, but you have to decipher who's good for you and who's not.
Truly. But and not just who's good for you and who's not, but taking accountability for your own actions.
Yes.
And sometimes your actions, I know you guys think it's just boneheaded, he's just, stupid. Sometimes people do things, especially with the factor in youth.
Yeah.
The fact that some of these players, men and women, are so young, there's a lot of pressure, and so you might need some help processing these things.
Because he's 23. So
Is he 23?
I think
I don't think, is he that old?
that young.
23, that young,
That
exactly,
young,
exactly.
Making millions. Yeah.
So talking about making millions, we got Laramie Tunsil this week. He did his own contract, $75 million, Houston Texans, I think offensive linebacker. These guys coming into huge money. Are you helping any players that have, really gotten to the point where they've signed huge contracts and they're just like, how do I process where I'm going?
I helped them build a very healthy support system.
Okay.
Because they lean on these people to make even financial decisions too. So having a good support system goes a long way. I think that sometimes people think it's overrated, but it's not. It really makes a huge of a difference.
So what if my support system right now is my parents, they need me to buy them a home. I need to take care of, my cousins and my aunties and uncles. What does a support system look like when all I've known all my life are my immediate family and my extended?
Agent, financial planner, those type of people, because they have no emotional ties to these people.
Right.
So they'll be able to tell you straight up, nah, that's too much for your mom and dad. Where you can be like, because they're pulling on your heartstrings, but you need someone that's gonna be like, nah, I'm gonna give you the real. They're milking you dry right now. And that's also part of your support system too.
Do you work, do you say, hey, I know somebody who can teach you financial literacy, here's a good, is that something you do, or you just try to stay away from that?
I usually recommend what's very common, because financial planning, that's very common, especially with millionaires and athletes. Agent, those type of people, they will help guide them in the right direction.
So what do you say, in this case with Laramie Tunsil, he has no agent. And then we see Lamar Jackson, whose agent is his mom, right? So Lamar's trying to get this fully guaranteed contract. Unfortunately, Lamar, it'll never happen because the NFL is really mad at the Browns.
Not yet.
It's never happening. Those 31 owners are like, nope, next. Anyway, that's beside the point. So with Lamar Jackson, who has his mom as his agent, who isn't actually an agent, is she a lawyer?
Oh, I'm not sure.
So I don't even know if she's a lawyer. So to understand the legal jargon that goes into this contract, what would you say to somebody like that who is just adamant on using the support system that they have known their entire life?
I would say, how does it make sense for them? Like I said, for LeBron James, it made sense.
Right.
Because they took the time to learn. Rich Paul took the time to learn.
That was his boy.
That was his boy, but his boy took the time to learn. Now, I don't know what his mom is doing, but, it's not working. So he has to be able to say, Mom, I appreciate the help, but I have to look in a different route. I get that's his mom. Doesn't mean that if he cut her off as an agent, doesn't mean that she won't be his mom no more.
Right.
But he has to, like I said, let go of the personal strings and understand this is a business.
But do you think that's where it becomes sticky? Because it is his mom, right? And now business is involved. And we already know you don't really mix
You don't.
family and business. It's not really good. So do you think because that is his mother, that emotional connection is there to why he cannot differentiate between business and family?
100%. Because this is why he hasn't got a contract now, the contract he's looking for, at least close to it. You know, not to blame his mom. It's not all his mom. It's the NFL and
Right.
the collusion that's
They're
going
definitely
on.
colluding.
You know, but yes, I think that it's time for him to look in a different direction. But that is his decision to make. Now, hopefully, he makes the right decision. That's best for him.
Or stand his ground, keep his mom as his agent, and say, listen, either you want me or you don't.
Or a third option, get the mom the support that she needs to learn the business.
Because we're not saying that he can't be his own agent, because Laramie Tunsil has done it successfully for, I believe this is his third or fourth contract he's negotiated for himself. But like you said, he took the time to understand the legal jargon, and it goes so much into that. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's not working for Lamar. So separating himself without hurting any feelings, or just saying this is a business decision, it's hard. It's hard. And Lamar's still a kid at the end of the day.
Still young.
Is he able to rent a car yet?
I think it's 26, 27. He's still young. Yes.
He could rent a car.
He can rent a car. Okay, he's rich at the 25 age.
Yes. All right, so is there anything that you would tell our viewers who are thinking about therapy, that just haven't pulled the trigger to, reach out to Psychology Today or, Therapy for Black Girls, or the different avenues that they should or could, explore to find a great therapist?
Yeah, I just want to tell people that we exist. We exist, we're here, we are relatable, very easy to connect with. You just have to look and just seek out services. Don't wait until something severely happens, which we still could be there for you, but it makes things harder for you to overcome. So just showing people that, we are here, we travel, I travel. I'm licensed in 14 states.
Oh, okay. All right.
14.
We
Yes,
should have led
14.
with that.
Oh, yes,
I know.
next time.
Yes.
What are the
Okay.
14 states?
Oh, let's see if I can remember all. So I have, of course, Florida, Texas, Georgia, D.C., New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Arizona, Nevada, California, Indiana, Indianapolis. I know I'm missing something. Louisiana, Ohio, and Michigan.
Wow.
Okay, so basically what he's saying is I can come to you if you need me to be your therapist. It's all confidential. And you'll help players and celebrities, entertainers alike, to work through whatever it is that they're going through.
Yes. And I would definitely give a quick shout out to a person who helped me get into this lane, Taraji P. Henson. Because I was doing a lot of the hip hop therapy with the kids down here in South Florida, where I promote mental health through the use of hip hop. And of course, her and her team got wind of it, and they reached out for me to present her conference in D.C. about, I think, 2019, right before the pandemic. Luckily, right? So,
Perfect timing.
yes, I'm trying to tell you. Of course, went out there, killed it, and of course, a lot of celebrities out there as well. They seen what I did, and from there, it opened a door for me, and it goes back to show you never know who's watching.
Right.
Because here I am living my own life here in Miami, just thinking just me and people locally that's watching me. But actually, her camp reached out because they see all the great things I'm doing down here.
Nice.
So that's where it started from. Then that's where I expanded with, of course, working with just celebrities in general.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Shout out to Raji P. Henson.
Shout out
Yes.
to Dr. Jeff Rocker, local North Miami Beach boy.
All day.
Came up from NMB Chargers
right.
and now is a celebrity therapist.
Yes.
And he has the
Yes.
key to the city.
So reach out. Dr. Jeff is available if you are looking to have some therapy, talk through some things, and catch us next week. If you guys have any questions or comments, share, comment, slide in his DM.
Professionally, yes.
Professionally.
Yes. All right. That's This Week in Sports. I am Danny Sherroll.
I am Adriana Smith.
And I am Sports Talk Tasha.
And we're set.